Welcome to the Business of You podcast, the show dedicated to helping service entrepreneurs build a better brand to grow a bigger business. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, and I'm here each week empowering you to put yourself out there, sharing actionable tips and inspiring stories so you can create your personal brand, grow your dream business, and build your future, all while making more income and more impact doing exactly what you love. I'm super excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Thank you everyone for being back here in our very first episode. I am extremely excited to have my friend Karen Tisdale from Australia. She is a LinkedIn profile writer and a top 10 LinkedIn trainer in the Asia Pacific. And besides that, she is exclusive to clients in Australia. I'm super happy to have her here giving her expert tips to help us with our LinkedIn profile and our content. Karen, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Well, I have to say, everyone knows LinkedIn is a place to meet people. And in fact, that's where you and I met. And we have since collaborated on some story theory about LinkedIn and content. And that's why she's here today, because as a Storybrand certified guide, I believe that's how we first met, Karen. You and I somehow found out about, I guess you saw that I was a Storybrand guide and we collaborated that way, right?
Yes, I saw that in your headline and I reached out to you. And I also saw that we have a few other things in common. We both believe very heavily in customer first and really helping people. And I think we both share a great enthusiasm for LinkedIn as a place that can really amplify your brand.
Exactly. In fact, that's where I hang out all the time. I know that's where you exclusively do your work, but I mean, I cannot tell you how many amazing people I found all through the profile and their content. And that's why this episode is extremely important, because back in the fall, you wrote this amazing article about your about summary, matching it to Donald Miller's Storybrand Framework, which I thought was so brilliant. You shared that with me. And so then I took my spin on it. And then we said, why not we get on an episode and talk about our differences? We're kind of having a mini duel, right? On like your version of story, my version, how I've been trained, and then just some with our backgrounds. I want to start today and say, what is the first thing we need when we're dealing with our profile? When you're coaching your Australian clients, and give us some tips, where do we start first if we want to get super engaging and super visible on LinkedIn, Karen?
Well, I'm going to be agreeing with you here, but I think it's always about knowing why you're here. What I see all through your profile is really strong messaging around knowing what you're doing and knowing how you're delivering that. And I think a lot of people get onto LinkedIn because either everybody else is on it and so they think they should be on it, or they joined it years ago just because everybody else was, and they just uploaded their resume to LinkedIn, and they haven't really thought about how this is making other people feel and how this is impacting their stakeholders and whether it's attracting clients. And they're not thinking about what's my end goal and working back from that. People really need to think, why am I here? And who am I here for? You might have a couple of goals. You might want to attract talent and also attract clients. You might want to impress your current boss and stay employed while also looking for a new role. You may have a couple of different goals, but I think it's really important, firstly, that people really sit down and think about what they are. And I actually get all my clients to write them down. Do you do the same thing? Because I think if you don't write down your goals, then it's like jumping in the car and just saying, hey, or jumping in an airplane. Hey, take me to Michelle's house. You kind of need to program that airplane. Like, where is Michelle? Where am I? So that you're on that path.
Yeah, no, exactly. We start with what I call my clarity compass, and I get them to know, why are you here? What's your goals? Who are you for? Just the basics, because I see so many people, and you do too. They don't really why they're there. They're just thinking they just need to be on the platform. And they don't really address who they are for. One of the big mistakes I see people making is they're just talking to all of LinkedIn, and they need to get their content really dialed in for who they want to be known as and the problem they solve. It's all about the problem you solve for the person you're there for. And when you change that, my goodness, it's like changing your copy and your website. It's just like, oh, the right people start, especially if you're doing that content the right way. I think that's one thing we agree on, Karen, because it's pretty important. And from a marketing standpoint, from a personal brand building, professional brand building, LinkedIn profile writing, you got to show up knowing who exactly you are and who you serve. So that's super
Mm.
important. And can you give me real quick what's the number one thing headlines should say? We've expanded that headline. Do you recommend your clients and my audience to have use up all that space, or what are their best
Yeah,
tips?
I've got a client at the moment actually. He's got 220 characters in that headline space, the space that sits underneath your name, the default of which is just your position title. And I've got a client at the moment and he's only got 150 words there. 150 characters, sorry. And I keep looking at it and going, oh my gosh, it's like the world's smallest headline. We've got so much space. We should use it. But at the same time, it kind of says everything it needs to say. So I don't think you should cram everything in there for the sake of it. At the same time, always challenging your preconceptions around how else might I be known for. I think it's really important in your headline, if you can, name who you are here for, what is it that who you do serve, and name that audience or name that industry. And also think about the different ways of describing what it is you do. So, you can have multiple words that mean similar things. So say, for instance, you're a project manager, you might want to use the word program. And then, of course, program here in Australia, we use US spelling and we also use English spelling, UK spelling. So I think Australia has a little bit of an identity crisis. I hope you don't have too many Australians listening going, oh, that's a bit offensive. But I think we do. So we use two different spellings. So for program, it can be A-M-M-E or it can just be program and end on the M. So you might want to use both spellings. You might want to use project director and you might want to use project manager. What are the different words? And looking at those words in the headline and going, have I duplicated those words? So if I've used program director and manager and I've used the same spelling, I've just used program twice. You don't need it twice, you only need it once. So how can I make sure that I've got all the right keywords in there? Keywords are important because they really impact your relevancy ranking. So how high you appear when somebody searches for your skills. So what are the keywords they would search for? Have you got duplications in there? Does it start with something that's interesting and exciting? And does it humanize you? You can put a little funny thing at the end of your headline. Mine's got something about doesn't work globally because my family complain that my voice travels through walls. And then a little eye rolling emoji, something that just humanizes you. Or I've got one of my clients talks about how she's an accountant and she's all about sharing knowledge in the accounting profession and she does lecturing part time. And then at the end, she's also a yoga enthusiast. I've seen Catherine Coombs who works for LinkedIn in HR, and she's got sort of aspiring mum of the year. So sort of something that just makes people go, but putting that at the end.
I love that, Karen. I'm all for humanizing and personalizing. That's why I'm all about working with personal and professional brands because I think it's a wonderful way to humanize our relationships and our marketing. But I never thought I'm going to have to steal that tip for me. Putting something personalized because another thing I find my clients be more personable, be more all this. And some people, including me, I'm just not 100% comfortable with sharing everything. I think that's the first tip. And that's the first place people are going to see that little humanistic tip. So Australia based and don't work globally as family complains my voice travels through walls.
Eye rolling emoji, 220 characters. And I'm a LinkedIn
Yes.
profile writer and a LinkedIn trainer. So that doesn't take up much space.
No.
Um,
No, that's
so I've
great.
got sort of other words there. And then I thought, well, what else talks about trainer? So I've got a speaker and webinars. So sort of thinking about something that humanizes you. But I also do that in the summary, the about section. And I'll typically do that sort of towards the end of somebody's profile. I'll link again something that's personal, an interest, a hobby, something that they like doing to the problems they solve and that transformation. I've got a client of mine who's an engineer who loves building things, and he just happens to have as a hobby carpentry. He likes building stuff when he's at home. When he's at work, he likes building stuff. And he had never seen that these two things are like exactly, so I'm like, we're going to talk about that in your about section. I like building things. So when I'm not at work, building waterways and stuff and infrastructure, I'm building toys and things out of wood. I've got a client of mine, Tanya Evans, and she's all about growth and seeing her clients grow and enabling that growth. And her hobby is gardening, but not just gardening, but she's actually obsessed with growing seedlings. So
Oh,
I've
wow.
done that and I've put a little emoji of a plant. So just some and a little emoji, not going overboard with them, but putting something like that and linking it to a hobby. I'm an avid learner, and then pictures of books. Just something that kind of wakes up your audience can look visually nice, but it also brings a part of you to your profile. And I think with COVID and everything that the world's gone through, I think we're yearning for authenticity. I think we're
Mhm.
yearning for connection. So I think it's really important to make sure that you do show who you are, but don't lead with that because people want to see themselves in the profile. What's the problem I solve? Who do I solve it for? And make sure that the first part of your headline, the first part of your about section, and all of your experience section is really talking to the problems you solve, who you solve them for, and how you solve them. Because everybody's got that what's in it for me, right?
Mhm.
Attention spans are really short and people are scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. We're on LinkedIn. We're already in a business mindset. Want
Mhm.
relaxation, you go to Instagram. If you want
Mhm.
community, you go to Facebook. If you want community, but you're in a business mindset, or you want news and you're in a business mindset, or you want connections, it's all on LinkedIn. And
Oh,
so, but I
totally.
think that's really important to lead with the what's in it for me. So putting that audience first and talking about their
No,
problem.
I love that because I'm going to get you back for a whole nother episode because we can talk for a whole hour on how to personalize and what's going too far. Seen a lot of that in content right now. Some people saying just be yourself, be personal, share it all. It's a lot out there. And so that's a topic for another day. But I know today our topic and our conversation is going to be about the most important part is about summaries because you get that headline and then if you're smart, you can get people to go down to the about section. And if you do it right, people are going to learn exactly all about you, enough to pique their interest, to get
Yeah.
the conversation started if you write it the right way. And you say right in the middle of your profile or your about section. Where did I see that? In addition to being obsessed with the Storybrand framework. So that's why we're here today. So just so some back knowledge, Karen wrote this about section articles, shared it with me. And then I came back with my own little non story brand take. Like I wrote a kind of a middle ground. We got story brand on one side, Karen's on the other, and Michelle's doing the more story based thing. So today we're going to look at what Karen's going to pull up and talk about some of the stuff I presented to her and give me a yay or nay based on her profile and her long time experience writing profiles. So, Karen, you ready to start?
Okay, ready for it.
All right, let's do it. So, first of all, we both agree that the about section is about you, but not for you. This is totally not where you say how great you are. Not at all. Or can we
Nobody
agree
wants
on?
bragging is just this is the world's biggest networking event and you just walked up to somebody in the room and just gone, "Hey, let me talk all about me." And then when I pause for breath, I want to hear what you think about me. Nobody likes that.
They'll be looking for someone else to talk to in about 2 seconds. Yeah, no one wants to. If you think about LinkedIn as put yourself in a real world position, you would change everything. We just have to keep that in perspective. We both agree the about section can be a fantastic way to talk about you, but not about you. Tell me what you thought about what your first step is and what mine is, Karen. Let's go pull out the highlight reel if you can.
So, what's the problem you solve and who do you solve it for? So, going back to that, what's your objective? What's your strategic goal? Who do you most want to influence? If you're on LinkedIn for talent attraction, then who you're here for is future employees. So what do they look like? What do they care about? What are their problems? What are they interested in? What's attractive to them? If you're here for clients, same. If you're to secure a job, then what's the problem? There's always a problem. If there's no problem, there's no job vacancy. So problem do you excel at solving? And naming that problem and naming who you solve it for. So that's where I start. Is that where you start?
Yeah, I call it my first step is the consider phase where I say just like we said, your goals, your objectives on the platform totally. And I think as you know, we have to kind of know about your audience and you need to know the language they speak and search because the way you present yourself, especially in a quick scroll environment, you're going to talk to the problems in the way they think about them, know their business problems, aspirations. I think we're pretty even on that, Karen. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary there. Because just a heads up, everybody, Karen told me there's a few points where she disagrees with me or she spends it in a different way. So I can't wait to get a little bit deeper. So anyway, in the Storybrand framework, it's the first phase as a character, and I put it as consider. So the next phase would be for you, Karen. What do you suggest in your summary?
Why, as well in that consider and in the summary section, it's also why do you do what you do? So this is moving a little bit away from the Storybrand framework in thinking about John DeMartini's philosophies on what's your values? What do you care about? Simon Sinek's why do you do what you do? I think of this as, if we're putting it in Storybrand language, it's a little bit of your backstory. Why did you become an engineer and not an accountant? What is it that made you want to do that? So somebody on platform I know quite well, Matthew Mock, he sells USANA products,
Mhm.
and he sells USANA products because his mother had cancer. And he saw how USANA helped his mother recover from stage 4 cancer. So he's a huge advocate because of that. So many people do what they do. So many mortgage brokers become mortgage brokers because they had a horrible experience and they just thought, it shouldn't be this hard. I can teach people how to make this less hard. So why do you do what you do? And really sort of making sure that you're capturing that, not leading with that, instead leading with a question for your audience, but making sure that you do capture in that why you do what you do and making that sort of part of your backstory in there. And also in terms of, I think you talk a bit about the characters, don't you? But I find that a little bit complicated when you talk about the character being the problem you solve. I instead sort of think of it as Luke Skywalker, or I watched Doctor Strange, one of the Marvel comic films with my kids the other day. What is the problem? What is the challenge? And thinking of that as the threat. What is the challenge that your audience has? If it's
Mhm.
an employee you want to attract, what is it that they're wanting? Maybe they're working for an organization that doesn't have very strong values, and your organization really has strong values. Then talk about that. What's the challenge out there? And what's going to happen if you don't solve that problem? You call that the conflict, don't you? Is that right?
Storybrand calls this in the Storybrand framework, it's the external, internal, and philosophical problem. And I was trying to create a more general story framework that every story has conflict. So there's three type of conflict, kind of like a physical, a personal, it's the emotional feeling, and then the principled, kind of like it's just plain wrong or there's got to be a better way. So I think Storybrand brings the why in, but they put it there. But I agree with you when I call my consider phase the backstory. Not only do you backstory your audience. But when I do my personal brand work, we start with the inside, like the internal stuff about you as a personal brand, then the external about your audience. But then we always present it first about the audience. So I think we're in line there. I think you have to know your why. People are going to absolutely be attracted to somebody who says the story about your client with their mother or the mortgage broker or the financial advisor who found a better way to do something. They're going to get that humanistic
Yes.
element and it's going to help you.
I love
Ex-
that. So great. I think your audience should be writing that down. Yeah. And I liked your idea too about philosophical. We were speaking earlier, Michelle, about being a Karen. And I think you really want to kind of dig deep on that. It's just plain wrong that this challenge exists. Matthew Mock's, it's beyond being indignant that his mother was dying of cancer, or that's the path that she was on until Usana apparently sort of turned her around. Thinking about this, really dig deep with your feeling of it's just plain wrong, of how unfair this is. Because I think when you dig deep and when you really show how the injustice of the problem that your audience is facing, and you're sharing that pain, saying it shouldn't be like this and it doesn't have to be like this, and this is my solution, this is the path that I can take you on of transformation. So if you're a business owner and you're trying to attract clients and your clients are all facing a specific problem. Maybe you're a tax accountant and they're all struggling with doing their tax returns. They're really struggling with their tax and they're feeling overwhelmed on where to start. You've got to you've got to dig deep in naming how wrong that is and how you can help them to overcome it and what that transformation looks like. It's a journey, isn't it? It's a story framework. It's a journey, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, all businesses are hopefully in business to solve a problem. At the end of the day, the journey really is going from A to B, where the horrible state they're in now to the desired transformations. That's exactly right. As you know, in Storybrand, they meet the guide who gives them empathy and authority. I call it compassion and credibility, an understanding that, hey, I've been there. You're in the right place. Like either I've been through this or I have helped so many people like you along the way to get there. So they want to know that they're in the right place, basically. But then the next phase is authority. Not only are you going to be compassionate and empathetic, but am I in the right place with someone who actually knows what they're talking about? Because at the end of the day, especially in service businesses, professional services, and expert entrepreneur businesses, we want that trusted, credible advisor, right? I think this is where you come in. The compassion is the start, but then you can really dive deep with your credibility and authority. But isn't there a problem, Karen, where you have to balance it? Because you don't want to go overboard. You don't want to flip the good will you just built and then turn it over and talk about you for 5 paragraphs.
I actually don't like credibility. I
Okay, I
don't
love
like
it.
you give me credibility and I'm this because I won this award and I'm that and da, da. I'm just going to start eye rolling and I'm just going to start feeling like you're not relating to my pain because you're above it and you've been through it all and you've solved this problem before. You don't see how it's a big problem and you're an expert in everything. And now I just feel dumb and stupid and stuck in my pain.
This is where
So
it's getting interesting. Let me backtrack it. I'm just calling this credibility, but Storybrand calls it either
actually,
one,
it's
either.
good to disagree.
Oh, I love it. It's not boring, right? So I want to get to the authority is what Storybrand calls it. In my story, other generic formula here is called credibility. At either place is where I was trained by Donald Miller. He says, I've been in business 30 years. This is where you
No,
part your part in. You
no,
say, cut that, cut it, cut it, cut
cut
it.
it, cut it,
Okay.
cut it. We
Okay.
don't want to hear about how you've been such an expert for 30 years when I've only been in business for 2 years and I'm struggling with my tax and I've got all of these accounting problems, but you've been doing these solutions for 30 years and I feel like you don't empathize with me because you can't even
That's
remember what my situation is
I
like.
love it. So you're too far gone. You're too big to understand my problem.
Suddenly you're the hero and you're competing with me for attention and you made me feel special, but now it's all become about you again. It's
Oh,
the
this
guy
is
who
good.
takes you on the date and he wines and dines
Yes.
when he listens to you keenly and you end up marrying him and it's all about him. No, I'm kidding.
That's
Like,
so interesting.
just lean into that compassion. I know your pain. I feel your
Uh,
pain. I've solved it for people. You can solve it for thousands of people, but don't talk about 30 years and don't talk too much
okay.
about your awards. You can have media on LinkedIn and you can
Uh-huh.
use your featured section. So at the bottom
Okay.
of every experience section, at the very bottom, so many people miss this. At the very bottom
Yeah.
of every experience section, you can
Yeah.
upload media. So if you've got a picture of you winning an award, show the picture. Don't talk about it in your profile. Show it. If you've written an article for an amazing magazine, Thrive Global, on how to
Mhm.
overcome some coaching problem, you want to have that article there uploaded. Show me that you're an expert. Don't tell me.
Yes. I love this. So you would just say lean more into compassion, the
Yeah.
empathy, maybe drop a little bit over the last 30 years. I've helped people like you, and then just keep going more about you. Okay.
Make it all about your audience. It's not all about the audience. It's like maybe 80, 90% about your audience. And it's about
That's a good
10, 20% about
okay.
your journey, why you became this, what your backstory was, how you've experienced this or you've known somebody experienced this. Why did you get into this? Why was it interesting? I have a client of mine who's a confidence coach and she teaches people how to speak. Her name is Wendy Teasdale Smith. I've got permission to talk about her profile. And she talks in her profile about how she helps people to show up in board meetings and stand on stages and be confident in themselves. But she grew up in a place where people didn't have a voice, especially women. And it was violent and rough and ugly. And she talks about this and she talks about how she dragged herself up from that. And now she's all about helping other people do that. So you really want to be really relatable and you
Mhm.
want to talk about the transformation, the journey of becoming without that problem.
For personal brand businesses, getting in the why and really doing that backstory, I think sells it even more than look how great I am. Because I do have to say, I'm looking at your profile, Karen. You do have a great idea here. And this is for my listeners. Listen to Karen. She has a great idea here. You can see examples of my work here. You have a link, and then you say, for proof of my work, scroll down to see the 90 plus recommendations. So, where do you house those, Karen? That's a great idea.
Yeah. If you really want the credibility, I'll show you.
Hmm.
I'm not going to tell you about it because it just makes me feel like I've got to talk about myself. And you don't want that, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
So let's just lead with compassion and let's
Hmm.
just talk about that happy ending. I had one client who actually he wasn't a client, he was a friend of mine. And I wanted to use him as an example years ago of what a great profile could look like. And I said, look, you're really senior. Can I use you as an example? He wasn't
Hmm.
looking for a job. I just talked him into letting me rewrite his profile and using him as an example in my webinars and presentations. He got headhunted because of his profile, and he got a
Oh, wow.
35% pay increase.
That's amazing.
So one of my clients even secured a new role with a 35% pay increase. I'm sure other clients might have, but they haven't come back to me and said, "Oh my God, this is what I'm earning now, and this is what I was earning." And they didn't do the math and tell me. So, he came back and said a 35.5 actually percent pay increase. So I show that happy ending, but don't talk
Mhm,
about the credibility. In
mhm.
terms of compassion, I also think it's really important to talk in the first person, because we see some. Do you disagree? Because sometimes you see profiles that are written in the third person. Michelle is da da da.
That's really touting your own star too much. I'm not a fan of that. There's a place for that somewhere, but not on LinkedIn. We have gotten the new LinkedIn because in the last couple years, it's just completely changed and become more personalized, but still professional.
That is just so distancing. As I am
Yeah,
too important to talk to you directly. I want
yeah.
you to feel like you are talking to my secretary. That's how I want to
Uh,
make you
no.
feel.
I don't wanna do business with that person, that's for sure. The trick is what we're saying is not the trick, but the tips, the overall arching theme is your about section is about your customer, your client, right? And leading with compassion, empathy, and most important, solving the problem, telling about the transformation you can take them on, and then to show the proof somewhere else. Like you have it. We know you all are amazing. And you don't want to disclaim that, but you can put it somewhere else because you do say Salesforce reports that 83% of people look at a person's profile before meeting. That's huge, right?
That is
That's huge.
absolutely huge. So, upload media, say, scroll down to my recommendations, show them, don't tell them. I
Mhm.
think also you've got in the Storybrand thing the compassion, credibility, and gives them a plan. Is that right? And then
Yeah, we got off track. So, yeah, let's finish this up.
I wonder if we
Yes.
disagree there as well, because with the plan, I always think about the steps and the process and the framework, the what next, how much is it going to cost, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so let me see. Do you recommend now the Storybrand framework really was never intended to be written as a LinkedIn profile. And that's another back part of this story. That's something I'd always wanted to do as a Storybrand guide. When I found this, I just latched onto this idea. So are you saying, Karen, that we shouldn't put this plan in? Because we definitely want a call to action. No doubt about that at the end. But should we leave the plan out, the 3 steps? Or what do you think?
Just
Profile
wondering,
writer.
like, because I mean, you've been trained in this, and I've just read the book a couple of times. So, can you explain to me what are the 3 steps? Sorry for my ignorance, but what are the 3 steps? A bit
Three
confused by it.
steps are the process. So they meet a guide who gives them a plan. Here's the 3 steps. They recommend like 3 steps, the power of three. Here's what we do to work together. Here's how I can help you. The 3 steps to get you to your desired transformation. So it might be book a call, then get a personalized plan. And then number 3 would be celebrate your success. It's a very high level, not a very specific. You might have 50 different steps, but you're going to put them in those over 3 because Donald Miller's Storybrand Framework is all about the simplicity and getting people to the next step easy so you're not complicating. He's all about simplicity and clarifying, making it super simple because people want to know, okay, I met this person, I've met this guy who's really going to help me, but how are we going to do this? Because I think a lot of
Yeah.
websites fall this problem. You just tell people about it, but then you just kind of drop off. You confuse, you lose thing is where this is so important. So you give them an overview, show them what their life's going to look like, and then you give them that call to action in the end, book a call, and then they have the transitional call to action if people aren't always ready to buy. And this is something that I think I'm going to start doing work with my clients. And for me, is to have like your lead magnet or your free guide or something in there right there. Because let me ask you, Karen, do you think if people call you every time they read it, how do you nurture that relationship till they're ready?
Yeah, so I don't have an idea about when they're ready to buy. I don't think about converting every person who looks at my profile into becoming a client. I think about the book 1000 Fans, 1000 True Fans. I
Mm-hmm.
think instead about converting everybody into a fan of my work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think of myself as a famous chef giving away all of my recipes, and you can take those recipes and you can cook the dish yourself. And that's where I'm going with. But if you've got
Mm-hmm.
lots of money and you don't have the time or you're not interested in cooking, you can pay me and I'll do it for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mhm.
I like this idea of not having a lead magnet, of not having a paywall, because anybody can find out anything. And I think that could actually even be a barrier. I'm going to get this article, or I'm going to get this PDF, or I'm going to get this information, but I have to give my email in order to get it. So now suddenly I'm feeling icky because you've asked something from me. And here we go. Now you're going to start sending me emails, and there'll be sequenced emails like everybody else does.
Mhm.
And so I like the idea instead of being crystal clear in the steps you take, your framework. How do you solve this problem? Don't just say you solve the problem, but tell me how you solve it. And I love your idea about what was your saying about confusion?
Oh, that's a Storybrand thing. If you confuse, you
I
lose.
love
That's it.
that. Sorry, I have read the book a
Yes.
couple of times, but I need to
Yes.
reread it again. If you confuse, you lose. So, giving that framework, telling them how they can do business with you. I loved that you said websites because, oh my gosh, how many times are you on a website you really want to buy and you can't buy because there's not a phone number or there's not a, you're like, I really want to
Mhm.
buy and I can't figure out how to buy. So, tell them how they can do business with you. Maybe even think about naming the price. And this is the idea about being that famous chef. Just give everything away. Tell them how they can do business with you, how they can contact you, and be crystal clear and simple with it, but just give everything away. And this is around your content creation on LinkedIn, where your profile sells, your content tells. And so your content, I believe, should be where you're sharing information on how your ideal clients solve their problem. So, when we talk about compassion and we talk about showing up as your authentic self, my client who's really keen on growing seedlings would probably love to be posting about her seedlings on LinkedIn, but she knows I will come down on her like a ton of bricks because nobody wants to hear about your seedlings. We all want to hear about how you help your customers to grow and how
Mhm.
you do that. So, just give away all of your recipes because I can find out anything if I Google for long enough without having to trade an email address.
Interesting.
It's been done and done and done. It's been done because it works, because people are used to having those emails and the email sequencing works. I just think if we just give everything away and we just lead with generosity, nobody's ever going to steal your IP because, oh my gosh, they're going to have
Yeah.
to read so many links. They're going to have to
Yeah.
spend 10,000 hours reading all of your posts on LinkedIn. And
Well,
then
they're
they
not
don't have the
you at the end
experience.
of the day,
You know,
right? At the end of the day, as a personal brand, they're not you. They could steal your IP, but they can't steal you and who you are and how you show up and your beliefs.
and that's why
And
building a brand is important.
And here's the thing, I'm gonna link in the show notes, but one of the marketers I follow, and his name just escaped me, he does a loyalty loop, and I just completely blanked on his name. I love all his videos. He just did a video last week about ungating your content, and he uses an example of a B2B company. I'm gonna send this to you too,
That
notes go.
really talks to me.
It totally does, and they have statistics to back it up. They may have lost emails, their subscriber count was down, but they're making up for it more traffic to their site.
Yeah.
And there's other ways they're doing it. So it's fascinating because I've seen this several times. I follow all the marketing blogs and stuff. And it's maybe even 4 or 5 years ago, I started seeing that come up like ungauge your content. Now, in the StoryBrand world, that's never going to fly because they're all about sales funnels and all this stuff too. But it depends on your industry. It depends who you're helping. A lot of people in the SaaS world, they are so tired of emails. Another thing
Yes.
too, you want to be transparent. People are tired of booking calls just to find out how much your service is. That's more for the SaaS world and stuff. There's a call now to humanize and personalize our brands. And that's why I help build personal, professional brands because we need that. And so you're speaking my language, Karen. That's one thing I can always agree on you. We're going to be compassionate and giving, and that's going to be interesting. So I think you're going to have to come back and we're going to talk more about those two topics. Like, how do we get more personalized without being too personal? And also, how do we lead with compassion so we don't lose business, though? Because that's where someone might say, well, if I don't ask for emails, how am I going to continue the
Yeah.
conversation?
How the sales journey has changed because I think the
Totally.
idea of gated community and email sequences that assumes that your buyers are going down a certain path and your
Hmm.
buyers are not. Your buyers are deciding when they want to buy and how they want to buy. And you've just got to show up at the right time. So that's why you need to be everywhere because
Yes.
buyers are so informed these days.
They are the marketing department, right?
Then
Exactly.
be the hero.
Exactly, and I said that wrong. This is Marketing is by Seth Godin, but The Marketing Revolution by Mark Schaefer is another amazing book. It's all about humanizing marketing. The most human company wins. The most human company personal brand wins. That's why personal brands humanize companies and humanize our brands because people want to do business with people and also more generous, more empathetic, but also still very helpful and kind and experienced. So we can't live that out. But in the businesses I know you serve in Australia and the companies, and then the clients I work with, they're relationship businesses at the end of the day. And we want to have someone that we would probably be friends with. You're going to be attracted and drawn to that. So that's how I'm always telling my clients we have to show up in a very professional but personable way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's about like you want people
Mhm.
to see you, and people want to be seen. They really want to be seen. So showing that you see your client.
Exactly. Karen, something about my friends in Australia. I get on Zoom or calls with them, and little do you know, an hour, 2 hours goes by. There's something about Australia. They're they're just some of the most generous and chatty and smartest people I know. But Karen, I know that we have more to talk about, but for the sake of brevity, because in marketing I'm all about being simple and concise, we should have you back for a future episode. Would you be willing to do that down the
Oh,
road?
I
Come
would
back?
love that. I love your time today. I really
Oh,
do.
yeah. I am inhaling all this, but the beauty of it is you're a StoryBrand fan. I'm a StoryBrand guide, but I think we both see that StoryBrand is an amazing framework, but there's still more to evolve about it. At the end of the day, the customer is the hero. Your client is the hero, and we can agree to that. But anyway, well, thank you so much. You've been an amazing guest with so much information. I can't wait to have you back again. I will look forward to that, and we'll drop all the links. And before we leave, tell us where we can find you and how we can connect with you and learn about you on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. You can find me on LinkedIn. I do only connect with people who are in Australia.
But they can
Sorry.
follow
So,
you.
but I would love it if they followed me. So just look me up. It's Karen Tisdale, and it's TIS for sugar, DELL, Tisdale. Look me up, find me on LinkedIn, and follow me because I do share all my recipes. I really do. And don't
And they
forget
are
to rate
good.
our podcast, Michelle's podcast.
Yes, totally sure. And let me tell you, her recipes are good. She's got some amazing content cooking all the time in her kitchen. So go follow her because she's just always so sincere. And then your new website is launching soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
KarenTisdale.com. So I'm really
Yeah,
excited about
I
that.
can't wait to check it. I saw a preview of some of her pictures. So anyway, just go check her out. And I can't thank you enough. So we'll get you back at a later date and we will talk to you soon. Bye now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. You know, we definitely need more impactful entrepreneurs like you out there. So if you'd like to learn more about how I can help you build your personal brand to grow your business, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.